It's the most controversial subject in all of wrestling today. And no, I'm not talking about some character or storyline or business deal. I'm just talking about a match. Of course, I'm talking about last week's match between Will Ospreay and Ricochet during New Japan's Best of the Super Juniors event at Korakuen Hall. Almost everybody has an opinion on this match. Some people think it was amazing and brilliant match of the year quality. Others think that it was an over-choreographed spot fest that favored style over substance. I find myself to be in the middle of the pack on this one. I thought the match was very exciting, but at times a little too cute for its own good. There were just some spots and sequences during the match that really took me out of it as a viewer. They bounced back from so many big moves that, say, back in the 90s would have been kayfabe career enders. They might as well have just looked at the hard cam and said, "Hey guys, we're not really fighting." And considering how blatant some of the spot calling was, they might as well have. I'm not entirely certain as to why this particular match is getting such attention right now. It's not like cruiserweight wrestling hasn't been around for the last several decades. You know, maybe it's because it was such a grand stage, maybe because both the wrestlers were very popular, maybe it's because it was virtually botch-free, but for some reason this match has really struck a nerve. A match like this helps revive a recurring and vital debate among fans and wrestlers. What is wrestling? With so many different styles and promotions and presentations out there, a match like Will Ospreay and Ricochet will happen every so often that makes fans question the very notion of what wrestling is. And since wrestling has evolved so much and so fast over the last 15 years, that question gets more difficult to answer all the time. I guess when you think about it, wrestling today is a lot like modern religion. Let's look at Christianity as an example. It started off as a response to Judaism, and from there burst forth into dozens of offshoots of the same basic premise with varying degrees of interpretation, and each subsect has very loyal followers who believe that their way is the one true way. Now look at pro wrestling. It has its roots in Greco-Roman and freestyle wrestling. Then it was in the carnivals for a long time. Then by the 1920s, Ed Lewis, Toots Mondt, and Billy Sandow, no relation to Damien, started incorporating theater into the mix, doing traveling shows, and basically formed the template of what modern pro wrestling is today. Those three were known as the Gold Dust Trio, or I guess you could say wrestling's equivalent of the Holy Trinity. As time went on, each subsequent generation made changes and evolutions to pro wrestling, while the previous generations clung hard to the ideals of wrestling during their time. Wrestling during the 50s is way different than wrestling during the 80s, which is also way different than wrestling in the 2010s. And while that's been going on, specific styles of wrestling have been bubbling up to the surface completely independent of the sport's overall evolution. Strong style, lucha libre and cruiserweight, hardcore, technical, Haas, comedy, the list goes on and on. Even some styles of wrestling that cannot be explained or clearly defined. And each one of those groups of wrestling has loyal, dedicated fans who swear up and down that that one is the best. So then, what is wrestling? Is it death-defying flippy-doos? Is it two fat guys forearming the shit out of each other? Is it 10 minutes of walk and talk? Is it guys in robot suits? Is it holds and counter holds? The answer to all that is yes. With the whole wrestling business being so out in the open about its non-competitive nature, it's essentially opened the floodgates for different styles and philosophies within the genre, basically treating it as a complex form of theater. Each subsect of wrestling has its own valid reasons for existing. I mean, I'm not about to backpedal on my stance on backyard wrestling, but I can't deny that it's part of the overall wrestling culture and that there are tons of people out there who love and embrace it. Even though I don't care about it personally, I know it's going to go on no matter what I think. I think the Ospreay-Ricochet match flies in the face of everything I was ever taught in wrestling school, but it doesn't matter because I still thought it was a very exciting match. Not only that, there was a whole arena full of paying fans who thought it tore the house down. Ricochet went on Twitter recently to respond to the criticism of that match, saying that wrestling is an art form that's constantly evolving and there's all sorts of different ways it can be interpreted, and that no one has the right to say that one style or another is or isn't wrestling. And he's totally right because art is subjective, as is wrestling, but I often find myself asking this question, why is wrestling artistic? What makes it artistic? Is it making it look cool, making it look believable, or somewhere in between? I mean, who makes that determination, the fans or the wrestlers? I wish I knew the answers. Variety makes the wrestling world go round, and as long as there are matches like Ospreay and Ricochet in New Japan, fans will be forced to grapple with the question of wrestling's entire purpose and existence and what it all means in the grand scheme of things, which, on the whole, makes the industry better. Have you seen the match that's got everyone up in a tizzy? Let me know what you think of it in the comments section below. Also, feel free to speak on whether or not there's a right and a wrong way for wrestling to be expressed. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.